Jacob Cameron Paddock-Weeks was a 27-year-old from Arvada, Colorado. He had worked with his father and loved the outdoors. On February 2nd, 2019, somebody resembling Jacob was speeding on Route 285 near Indian Hills. In a turn, Jacob's truck hit the inside guardrail and came to a stop, facing traffic. The person got out and walked away. He was never seen again. I'm Ed Denzel, and this is Unfound. On the first and still only episode of Unfound Now, don't worry, there are more coming as soon as another disappearance gets national attention. But on that episode, I talked about the issue of destination disappearances, the kind of disappearance where a person is traveling from point A to point B, and somewhere in between, he or she disappears. These kinds of cases, at least at the beginning, have the widest range of possibilities. Suicide, murder, accident, ran off to start a new life, or kidnapped. However, what we have also learned about the type, the further we get from the time of the disappearance, the possibilities slowly begin to drop away, and the picture becomes much clearer. And we can eventually narrow it down to 2 or 3 choices. This is evident in the missing person I featured for that Unfound Now episode, Linda Stoltfus. We now know that unfortunately it seems she was abducted, a choice that seemed very possible from day one. However, Linda has not yet been found. We at Unfound hope she is found alive soon. Well, in the disappearance of Jacob Paddock-Weeks, although we don't know where Jacob was coming from or going to that day, in fact, there could be reasons to believe it wasn't even Jacob driving his truck, this is certainly a destination disappearance. And knowing what point A and point B were could certainly help us understand what was going on that day. But we don't. So we're left with trying to figure out what happened at Disappearance Curve. And now a summary of the case. This disappearance is not on the Charlie Project, although it is on NamUs. Jacob Paddock-Weeks had a large family, 4 siblings in addition to himself. And, strangely enough, he even had an uncle who was younger than Jacob was. Jacob didn't graduate from high school, but went to work right after deciding to drop out. He worked with his father for a while in disaster relief, then moved on to more specific work, including welding. Along the way, Jacob met a girl who he dated for over 3 years. And although it never seemed to interfere with his employment, Jacob had struggled with addiction for several years, something that could have brought on hallucinations Jacob said he had. On top of that, he and his girlfriend broke up not long before his disappearance. So on February 2nd, 2019, Jacob, or somebody appearing to be Jacob, was traveling eastbound/northbound on Route 285 near Indian Hills, Colorado. Where was he coming from? Nobody knows. Where was he going? Nobody knows. However, Jacob's truck was speeding, well over the 55-mile-per-hour speed limit. The vehicle hit the inside guardrail of the 4-lane road, slid along it, then spun around facing the opposite direction. No other cars were involved, and no one was injured. The driver, presumably Jacob, wearing a hoodie with the hood pulled up over his head, calmly got out of the vehicle, lit a cigarette, then walked to the side of the road and disappeared down over the bank. State police showed up minutes later. They did a quick search of the surrounding area. No one was found. The driver was never seen again. Found in the truck were Jacob's wallet, 2 cell phones with their SIM cards removed, one of those was Jacob's grandmother's, and a variety of drug paraphernalia. Given that a person believed to be Jacob was seen running from the accident, There doesn't seem to be a lot of mystery involved in this case, at least on the surface. However, questions remain that leave many loose strings untied. Number 1, where was the driver, presumably Jacob, coming from and going to on February 2nd? Number 2, if the driver was Jacob, why didn't he take his wallet, phones, and drug items with him when he walked off? And number 3, could a fight Jacob had with his uncle the night before, a man around Jacob's age, have something to do with the wreck that occurred the next day? Jacob's family is open to many possibilities regarding his disappearance. Their main goal with this episode is to get a large group for a search in the area of the wreck site, something that has not been done to this point. The guests for this episode are Jacob's father and stepmother, George and Amanda Weeks. Unfound News. Another episode of Unfound on the Ground was conducted this past Monday, July 13th. The topic, where to find sources for disappearance cases. It went really well. I liked hearing the audience participation from Unfound's premium Patreon members. And I want to publicly thank Dr. Eric Grabowski, who has done a great job running on the ground so far. All of you will get to hear the episode in a few weeks when we release it for free on YouTube. Next, I'm not sure when we'll be announcing it publicly. It will be totally up to my assistant Cherie, who came up with the great idea. Really, we don't even have a name for it yet. But we at Unfound will be starting something new within the next few weeks. As always, it will be both informative and educational. Let's just say it will give all of you a pretty good peek behind the scenes. Finally, we are quickly coming up on Unfound's 4-year anniversary. That would be the beginning of September 2020. It does not seem possible. Where has the time gone? We will celebrate the occasion the way we have for the previous 3, by replaying the very first episode, The Disappearance of Suzanne Lyle, where you can find Unfound. Unfound supports accounts on Podomatic, iTunes, Stitcher, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, Deezer, Facebook, and YouTube. On Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, please join us on the Unfound Podcast Channel on YouTube for the Unfound Live Show. All of you can talk with me, and I can answer your questions. Contribute to Unfound at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. You can also contribute at PayPal, paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the father of Jacob Paddock-Weeks, George, and Jacob's stepmother, Amanda. George and Amanda, welcome to Unfound.
Hi. Hello. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm very excited to cover Jacob's disappearance. I hope that Unfound can help both of you out. Of course, since this is such a new disappearance from 2019. Let's start here. Let's just talk about Jacob, him growing up. What was he into? Does he have any siblings? Let's start there.
So when Jacob was about 4 years old, George and I got together and we raised Jacob together, on and off with his biological mom and her husband at the time. So he spent holidays and birthdays and everything in between both families or together. We tried to make Jacob's home life a happy one where we did everything together. He has a brother and 2 sisters with his father and I, and then he has a brother on his mother's side.
Okay, and where does, I'm not going to ask you, of course, to do all the math, but where does Jacob follow in that line of children?
He is the oldest.
He was the oldest. He's the oldest. Okay. So he has all these siblings. Would you say between the both of you, would your assessment be that they all got along? Were Were they tight or not?
Yes.
Yeah, they were tight.
Okay. All right. What was Jacob into as a young boy? Interest sports, hunting and fishing, like a lot of boys are, or what? What was he into?
Well, when he was little, he did baseball, softball, and then of course, we love camping, so we went camping almost every weekend or every other weekend that we could. And
fishing, and then he got into skateboarding.
Skateboarding, yeah, it's big, sure.
Yep.
Okay. Did he ever get hurt? I think I never was into skateboarding, but any bad falls or anything that come to mind?
Not bad, no.
No, okay. All right. So there was some of his interests, hobbies, a little bit of sports in there. What about education? Went to high school. What can you say about that? What was he into in school?
School-wise, he went through middle school and then high school. I think he just started having problems and never finished high school.
Let's talk about that a little bit. When the way you look back at it now, what were some of those issues? I mean, how old was he? What grade was he in?
Oh, shoot.
I think he was 7th grade when he started having more issues hanging out with, well, probably the skater stoner crowd.
Mm-hmm. Why, in retrospect, why do you think that was? Did he not fit in with another group, or what do you think it was? Any ideas?
I think it was more a teenager thing. I mean, he seemed to have tons of friends.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up 7th grade and came to live with us during the school year. Before that, he had stayed with his mom during the school year, and then we'd have him weekends and most of the summer.
Okay. All right. And that these things that started in 7th grade, they just continued to go on as he got older, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, kind of the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. And then after he dropped out, he went to one of the community colleges, took the class he needed, and he got his GED. He got his GED.
Okay. What was he saying to you? I mean, I'm not a parent, as the listeners know, so I have no experience in this area talking to teenagers like a parent would. But what was he telling both of you during this time when you saw that he was on a track probably that you wouldn't want him to have been on? What was he saying to you? Could you have any talks with him about it or not?
Yeah, just little ones. I mean, I think they just give you too much freedom in high school to where, you as a parent don't have that much control over if he's going to go every day besides bringing him there. You can bring him there and they can go right out the back door and, and as a parent, you can't do too much except for scold him, tell him, the life thing like every parent does is, get your high school diploma, go to college, whatever. And, I can't talk myself too much. I graduated from high school, but I did not go to college. I just worked myself into it.
Okay. But he did end up, he dropped out. How old was he? What grade did he drop? When he dropped out, what grade was he in?
I think it was in 10th grade.
10th grade. It's very young, maybe 15, 16 years old. Okay. But you said that he did end up going, getting his GED, and what did he do after that? Did he get a job? Did he work somewhere? What was he doing?
Yeah, he actually, with my line of industry and where I am at the company, I was able to bring him along board. So it kind of was a convenience probably for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
So he would just work with me, get a paycheck. He was living with us, so kind of just worked out easy as, something I would have took as a kid because I couldn't go to work with my parents. But but yeah, so I worked, and even his younger brother actually did the same thing too. Came aboard and started working with me.
Okay, and what was that? Just in general, you don't have to name the company or anything, but what was the work?
I do insurance work for disaster work, drying out buildings, fires work. We do hurricanes and stuff like that too, where we'll travel and actually go out and dry buildings.
Right, and you and George and I in a prior conversation, you had talked about coming to Florida or to the southeast after some of these hurricanes, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How did he like that work in your estimation? How did he do it? Was he good at it? Did he like it?
Yeah, Jacob seemed to be a quick learner at a lot of stuff, so I think he liked it. He liked working with me, getting time with me. So I don't think work was really ever an issue. He didn't really have a problem getting up in the morning, going, dealing with it, and being responsible. And he seemed to take that in every job after that he's ever gotten. That he was a quick learner and she done good at whatever he started to do.
Okay. And so, how you're saying that he did that for a while? Did he move on then to something else?
Yeah, he did that for quite a few years, and as he got older, I think he just wanted to start checking out different things, and he got into like welding, which he really did good at, and he took that for a while, and he did that almost up until about the time when he started to go to the mountain, then he got into construction work, and he seemed to really like that. You're outdoors, you're building houses, you're building decks, you're actually accomplishing things you can see that are accomplished when you're done.
Right. Okay. So he was doing this, we have to remember he was 27 when he disappeared?
Yes.
27? So he was doing this throughout his 20s then?
I'd say he worked with me until 20, but it was probably just the last couple of years that he did the construction.
Okay. All right, so he's doing that. He has his work. Did he have any relationships going on during this time? Did he ever get married? Did he ever live with a woman? Did he have any kids? What was the situation going on in his 20s regarding that?
Yeah, so Jacob's never had any issues on the woman's side. He's an attractive boy, so he was good with getting girlfriends. So that went for quite a long time, and then they had a bad breakup. And then when he left her, he'd get the ones for a few, but then right before his disappearance, he was actually with the girl for about 3 years.
Okay. All right. And we're not going to, of course, name her a full name, but just her first name, just so maybe we can keep this clear because she will come up later. What is just her first name?
Yeah, her name, I just call her by Jess.
Jess. Okay, that's fine. We'll just call her Jess. All right, so he was with this Jess for about 3 years. They broke up once again shortly before he disappeared. So let's just say they started maybe dating in 2015. But he had some girlfriends before that. Did he have any children? No. No
That's
kids.
the one. We thought I'd be first on the ground outside, but never happened.
Okay. All right. And Amanda, from your standpoint as a stepmother, how did you view this relationship? We'll just stick to the most recent one with Jess. How did you view it? How did the two get along? Did they make a good couple? What would you say?
They seemed to get along really well. They had known each other since they were in middle school. She lived up in the mountains in Bailey area, and he ended up when they decided to get together, he moved in with her up there into her dad's house, and they seemed to get along really well. I mean, all couples argue, but they seem to get along pretty good.
All right. Did they live together at any point, or yes, no?
They lived together for about 3 years up in the mountains.
Okay, so almost the entire time they were together. They were a couple. Do either of you know how these two met?
Like I said, they had met in middle school.
Middle school.
I'm not
okay.
Yeah.
All right, and so they kind of reconnected once they got into their 20s. Okay. But like you said, they broke up in 2018. Do you know what the reason was for their breakup?
We don't really know completely what broke them up in the end. He ended up moving out, and he went to go stay with his biological grandma, his maternal grandma, with the uncle on and off after they broke up.
Okay. And we'll certainly talk about that. Sure, we'll talk about that in a moment. But so to this day, what you're saying, we're doing this interview on July 11th, 2020. Neither of you really know for sure. Maybe we can guess, but we don't know for sure why the two broke up.
No, I mean, we have like the hearsay, but they both did party. But probably Jacob maybe partied more, and she wanted him to settle down more as a family. But we're not quite sure because we don't know her side.
Okay, and we'll talk about her, of course, a little later. Okay, now we do have to talk about this. Jacob did have some addictions, and was this kind of what started even way back when he was 7th grade, or was this something that you believe started later? How do you two view it now?
I think with 7th grade and stuff, it probably was just like marijuana, the first things that people normally would try, and then and as he got into his higher teens or even in his early 20s is when he would probably experiment with more and actually probably that's when he gained the ones or whatever I could say.
Okay. And did either of you talk to him about it? Did he ever try rehab to get over it, to past it? How would you answer that?
Yeah, no, we've talked about it. Much you can do as a parent except for try to help, try to talk to him. But you can't really stop somebody that isn't going to stop themselves. Especially when he's moving on with his life and he's a big boy. He's got a house. He's not staying at our house at that point. But But as he was younger, yes, we tell him that it's not good, whatnot. Of course, out here marijuana is legal, but other things you tell him that doesn't help. There's been past in the family, and that didn't work out too good for anybody. So he's seen it on first hand, what it could do to somebody. So.
Right.
So.
Right. And so what you're saying is he was addicted to harder things than marijuana.
Yeah.
He was. Okay. And so he struggled with that. And do you think that his girlfriend, once again, Jess, do you think that she was into that, or is it a guess that he might have they might have broken up because of that?
Yeah, and I'd say Jess did, and the choice of drug was some methamphetamines, I do believe, but
okay.
I think he did it at a slower pace or when she wanted to, and I think with Jacob he would just do it more and when he wanted to, and that was probably an issue.
Okay. All right. Amanda, the way you remember it, can you remember the first time you thought that Jacob was having a problem with drugs? Do you remember, and how do you remember it coming up?
Jacob always was one of those type of kids where he'd kind of show you what he wanted you to see. So I can't really think of a specific moment where he realized he was having an issue. Because he was a good kid and he tried really hard at everything he did. But, he'd always do something, mess up, deal with the consequences, and then move forward. But, he'd turn around a couple months later and mess up again. I really can't think of a moment where...
It was probably in his late teens, though.
Yeah.
Towards 20, where we know, that he's experimenting with something else, and maybe even alcohol. And then it was in probably his, I don't know how that's later 20s, but mid-20s, I guess, is when, he was living with us, and we could maybe find something in his room if we walked through there when he wasn't there, and we tell him, hey, what the heck?
All right.
At home.
Okay. All right. And you told me that not long before he disappeared, you'd have to tell me the exact time frame, but you had told me that he might have been hallucinating at times before he disappeared?
Yeah.
I think that was probably about 6 months before he disappeared is when he started showing that, like, he would have hallucinations and he wasn't doing too good.
Okay. All right. And the way you look at it now, do you think this had anything to do with his drugs or all? Or do you think it was something else?
No, I mean, we think it was part of the drugs probably, but we also don't know what he's seeing or the people that he'd be hanging out with, and some of it we're told already, with all this disappearance stuff that like things he's seen, things that he shouldn't have, and so we don't really know what was going on with the last year of his life, to where that if he's seeing actually things we would have never thought we would see as a parent, and some of the stuff, we don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, we could tell he was paranoid and.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to this. Now, you had said that he and Jess were living together, but when they broke up, my understanding is he did not move back in with you, or he didn't move in with a friend or anything. He went and lived with who? His uncle and who else?
His maternal grandmother.
His maternal grandmother. What did you two think of that when that happened?
We just thought it was a pretty normal thing in life. Maybe they were just going to break up and then get back together and move up there. We didn't think anything was permanent. We just know he was going back and forth, and to make it easier on his ex-girlfriend now and him. Mm-hmm. But we didn't know if they together, if they work out their differences or what. So we just thought it was a temporary thing.
And Jacob always said he wanted to get back together with Jess.
Okay. But the relationship between Jacob, his grandmother, and this uncle, ever have any friction between the three of them in the past? Anything like that?
No, he was close to his grandmother. His uncle is about 5-6 years younger than him. So Jacob was more of the older influence, the big brother type influence to Jonathan, his uncle.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, Jacob loves his grandmother.
Okay, that's an interesting situation, having an uncle that's younger than he is.
Yeah.
That's very unique. I'm kind of almost close to that in my family, but to have an actual uncle that's younger, that is interesting. Okay. So this Jonathan, so if Jacob was 27, then you're saying Jonathan was 22?
Yeah, right around there.
Well, and the thing with Jonathan, though, is like we said, we have other kids, and we have Jared, which is Jacob's younger brother from our side, who's the same age as Don. And same with Jessica, we'll say, her name is Jacob's mom. She has a son that's about Jared's age, too, so you have 3 boys that are about 23 now.
Yeah.
Right.
And then Jacob, the older one. So even though, so it kind of made for a little bit of a weird dynamic.
That is very unique. You're right. Okay. But off the top, right, though, just your general reaction, he breaks up with Jess. It didn't bother you two at all that Jacob was going to live with his grandmother and Jonathan. No concern about that at all.
No.
Okay. So let's move up to the day or the night before Jacob went missing. My understanding, though, is that something did pop up between Jonathan and Jacob. Why don't you try to explain that?
So, it was a night or two before Jacob went missing. Jacob had gotten off of work, and he picked up Jonathan after Jonathan got off work, and they were going to go for a drive up to the mountains or somewhere. I'm not too sure. Jacob did have an open beer in his truck, and Jonathan went to take a drink out of it, and Jacob got mad at Jonathan, and he pulled over and kicked Jonathan out of the truck for drinking out of his beer, and that's what we understand the argument to be as.
Wow. And is the way you know this is because Jonathan told you this later?
Yeah, so when Jonathan ended up getting picked up by the police, taken to detox, and the next day he called our son Jared and asked him to come pick him up And that's when we found out that we tried calling Jacob, and we couldn't get a hold of him that Saturday morning.
Okay, and we'll come to that. So they're somewhere. Where is this? Maybe just name the nearest town to where Jacob and Jonathan were when this happened.
I believe they were in Lakewood.
All right. And how far is that away from where you two live?
20 minutes.
About 20 minutes.
Okay. So Jonathan, Jacob seemingly, we only have Jonathan's word on this, but Jonathan allegedly gets kicked out of the truck because of this incident that doesn't sound like a big deal, but I guess it grew into something. And are you saying that the police picked him up right after this, or how did that happen?
We were thinking he was just walking down the streets and whatnot, and we don't know how, but Jonathan's been picked up before, just walking or riding his bicycle. Gets put in detox because he has been drinking. So He does drink, and he doesn't hold as well as other people, I guess. So if he gets in front of the cops, they know he's been drinking. So, and then that's what he took it as too. Is it could have just been two boys in their 20s drinking, and you know how that always out half the time.
Sure. Okay, so he's put in detox. He wasn't charged with anything, any public drunkenness, or do you know? Or
I don't think they.
I don't believe so, but I'm not for sure.
Okay. So in your understanding, though, how long was Jonathan in detox? What time? I guess he got out on sometime that next day, which is the disappearance day, February 2nd, 2019. Do you know what time he got out of detox at all?
I believe it was around 9 in the morning, so he was probably in there for around 12 hours. I'm not for too sure, but I believe it was around 12 hours.
Okay, and then one of your other sons came and picked him up, drove him home?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that happens the night before. Now, to this day, once again, this is about a year and a half ago, does Jonathan know any ideas where Jacob went after he kicked Jonathan out of the vehicle?
No, he doesn't. He's emotionally upset, just like all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Our son Jared up to the mountains to look for him. None of us have. He doesn't know where Jacob is.
Okay. Well, I know. I'm not saying he knows, but I'm just asking if he knows where Jacob went directly after getting kicked out of the vehicle. Where were they headed? Were they headed does he know that if Jacob continued to go in that direction, anything like that?
No, because I don't think he has much recollection from the drinking.
Right.
Where that's why he couldn't get away from the cops when they started talking to him for drunk in public or whatever it is. But yeah, so I don't think and to him, I don't think it was, to none of us, it was really that anything really even out of the ordinary. I mean, maybe out of some families, but your younger uncle, whatever, it's almost his older brother, but kicked you out of his car because you're trying to drink his beer, and it seemed halfway normal to me. Like,
okay,
maybe a little upset, but yeah.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so Jonathan says he just doesn't know where Jacob went after that. Do you know of any communications that Jacob had with anybody after this happened that night?
So we tried calling some numbers a month after he went missing when we got the phones back to try and find out, get talked to, but we have not been able to find out where he went or even where he was coming from when he was in his accident.
Right. All right. So to this day, a year and a half later, there is no proof that he ever did contact through social media or texting or calling anybody after he kicked Jonathan out of the vehicle.
No.
Okay. And nobody's come forward to say they saw Jacob that night. Once again, January or February 1st.
No.
Into the 2nd. Okay. So we move up to February 2nd, 2019, once again, about a year and a half ago. And how do you two find out? We'll get into the exact accident and what happened, but how did you two find out about his truck being on this highway, having hit the guardrail, et cetera? Where were you two when you found this out?
So We tried calling Jacob Saturday, Sunday. It was decided between us and his mother, Jessica, that she would call Jefferson County and make him a missing person on Monday morning. So we made him a missing person on Monday morning, and it was, I believe it was Wednesday is when we tried to get a hold of the missing persons lady and give Jacob's truck information to get his license plate took out if it was in an accident or anything. And that's when Jefferson County, Kathy Ireland, told us she put his license plate in, looked it up, and we found out Wednesday that he was actually in a car accident. So it was 5 days later.
Wow, so like February, you didn't find out about the truck until February 7th approximately.
Yes.
All right, so 5 days later. Okay. And they had the truck at some impound lot or something at that point?
Yes.
The police had Okay.
Okay.
When did you, and we're going to go through that right now, when did you find out the details? Did you find out February 7th, the way, once again, either of you remember it? Did they tell you about the circumstances of the accident on the 7th, on the 8th? What do you remember?
So when we found out that his truck was involved in a motor vehicle accident, George called the state patrol who responded to the accident. Mm-hmm. He talked to an officer through them that said that Jacob had been involved in an accident on Saturday morning around 9 a.m. and he had ran from the scene of the accident. We were told by state patrol they believed Jacob had made it down from the mountain away from the accident is what they had said. It didn't seem he was hurt. There was no blood or any evidence to show that. And so we just assumed he was hiding at a friend's house. We kept waiting for him to call one of us or his mom or his grandma or even our son or his uncle. And so
So the state patrol pretty much made it comforting in the fact that they would say, we think he made it just down the mountain hiding.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's very right.
Let's just go through the way they explained it to you, and there was a witness, and I want to talk about that. Please explain to the listeners your understanding of what happened during this accident, and where it was, and what highway, etc.
To me, the accident, it happened on Hampton, which is 285, so it actually is a highway. As it comes into Denver, it actually turns into like a normal road. But towards the mountains, it's a highway, so state patrol came in. But so he was coming down the mountain. What we were told, he was doing excess of like 80 miles an hour on like a 50 or 55 at that point. Hit the guardrail in the middle by himself, drug it down about 500 feet. When the vehicle came to a stop, it almost seemed to have gone all down the guardrail to where it turned the other way, so he's facing the wrong way of traffic.
Wow.
Witness, what I'm hearing is seeing somebody matching his description with clothing wise, get out and light a cigarette or something, and then cross over Hampton to the mountainside, and then disappear in the mountains is what I'm kind of hearing.
Wow. That's what you're hearing. That's what they told you. Of course, you were not there, but that's what they told you.
Yeah.
That's what the witness said, and that's what the witness ended up telling the police.
Yeah.
All right. So this was a one vehicle accident. He did not hit anybody. Nobody had. Maybe people had to swerve away, but no other cars were damaged. No one was hurt in this accident. Except maybe Jacob. We just don't know. All right. So he didn't hit any other cars. The vehicle's left there, and then he seemingly runs off. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and this is for the listeners. If you want to look this up on the map, this is on Route 285 near Indian Hills, Colorado. Also, kind of near where the Tiny Town and Railroad is. Correct?
Yes.
In that area. And so, if he would have been leaving that highway, would he have been going to the west or to the east? Would he have been going off the side of the highway where Tiny Town is?
Yes, he would, and that would be. At that point, when you're looking at a map, from just north a little bit, and the highway's kind of running east and west at that point. So we don't know at that point if he would go back to the mountains or further in the mountains or come to town into Denver or Lakewood or Arvada.
Right. Okay. So if the listeners want to look that up on a map, he's coming down, he hits this guardrail, and then he goes over the side. Once again, we'll get into whether it was actually Jacob or not. We'll certainly have that conversation before we're done in this interview. But the person driving the vehicle then went off the side of the road, over the berm, over probably another guardrail that was there, and down toward the tiny town area. And that was the last time anybody saw him, seemingly.
Yeah, except for like just once in a while we'll hear like somebody maybe came out right there because there's a parking ride. I don't know.
Right. I'm just going through what people saw at the time of the accident. What the witnesses said. They said he or she, or maybe there was more than one, saw the vehicle and the driver jump out and go over the side of the road toward Tiny Town.
That's what I've got.
Okay, okay. We're not going to get into any theorizing at this point. I just want to know what the witnesses said. All right. So, but it takes, like you said, 5 days for the truck to be identified, or you're looking for him, and then they put it all together that the person's vehicle who was left on Route 285 was your son's.
Yes.
Okay. And that's when they tell you about the wreck, and that's when they tell you that he's probably going over the speed limit, although those things are not, they just approximate that. Is your understanding that the police got there fairly quickly, like within minutes? Or, I mean, it's a vehicle right in the middle of a highway. I'm guessing they got there pretty fast, but what's your understanding?
I believe they got there within 10 or 15 minutes. It didn't take them very long to get there, but they did arrive fairly quickly after.
All right. And so they take the vehicle away. Maybe they give like a cursory search of the area, but they're probably thinking, because the police encounter a lot of people who are drinking and driving, who wreck their cars and run off. It's a very common phenomenon, not just in the United States, but everywhere. So they're thinking, well, this person's going to pop up eventually anyway. And so they just kind of look around, don't see him, and so they just take the truck away and, do all the paperwork, and that's that. You find out on that Wednesday, and once you realize, of course, that the truck is in their possession, it's still 5 days later. What are you two thinking at that point? Are you thinking that he's going to pop up, or do you think it's, of course you filed a missing persons report, but do you think it's something where he'll pop up quickly, or do you think it's something more serious, like right around February 7th, February 8th?
I think we're still thinking he could pop up. Now, I think we did hear about the cell phone issue, but, with knowing our son, that maybe he could have just ran away to hide for a few and say, oh, I messed up. Mm-hmm. And then just time kind of went on, and no phone calls or
right.
And I'm thinking maybe he doesn't know our numbers except for on his phone, like Dad, Mom, Grandma, and he didn't have that with him. And then I'm thinking, well, he's a street smart boy. He can he'll find his way home just to say hey and come here or something and say hey, I messed up, and we'll figure it out from there. But
and Jacob's gone camping, his whole childhood and adult life, and he's gone fishing, and that's in the mountains. So he knows how to safely go through the mountains and walk around and go hiking. And so in our minds at that time, we're thinking he made it down because the state patrol said he made it down. So we're just waiting for him to call one of us.
Yeah. Okay. Now, you also did tell me, though, that not long after this happened, there was some sort of snowstorm in that area. Of course, it's February in Colorado that's going to happen. Is that correct?
So the day, Wednesday, when we started looking into what vehicle he was driving, was a bad blizzard. I was actually sent home from work early because it was so bad that I left work at like noon, came home, and then that's when we started trying to figure out what vehicle he had, and that's when we realized he was actually in the accident.
Okay. If I can ask, I should ask this before, how bad was the vehicle damaged? I mean, was it really smashed up? I mean, could it be driven away? How bad was it?
We actually didn't look at the truck. We were told that only Jacob, because he's the registered owner, could get anything out of it or get it out of impound. So we only have the state patrol report to show the damage.
So you've never seen pictures of it or have never seen it in person?
That's what we're trying to get from the state patrol is the pictures of the truck and the inside right now.
Okay. I'm a little surprised by that. Okay. So you've never actually seen the condition of the truck. You don't really know how bad it was damaged. Okay. I'm guessing it was probably going 75 miles an hour hitting a guardrail. I'm going to guess there's some significant damage, but until you see it, you really don't know. All right, so he goes missing, and then there's a blizzard not long after that, which, of course, is going to certainly hurt any search efforts for that area, and we'll get into the searches in a moment. Any idea what he was doing in that area? I mean, Indian Hills, where is that in relation to where you live? Where is it in relation to where he was living with his grandmother and his uncle?
No, that actually points us to where he was, and that's where we don't know. It's all just speculation. You either up there working with somebody in the mountains.
Well, we don't want to speculate. Well, I'm just asking for the facts. Do you have any reason? Do you have any knowledge of why he would have been in that area? Would he have been in that area because, once again, I'm not familiar with this area. Probably most of the listeners aren't either. I'm just asking, could he have been driving to? Given that highway, could he have been driving to home? Could he have been driving to see you?
Yeah, and what I would say is, yes, he was driving home or driving to his grandma's house.
Okay, so he traveled this. So he traveled this highway often.
Probably daily.
Daily. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it was a highway that was known to him. But really factually, we have no idea where he was coming from and where he was going. All we can do is guess.
Yes.
Okay. All right. When did you find out in the course of trying to put this all together about this argument between Jonathan and Jacob? When did that come up?
That came up the Saturday morning of his accident because our son had to pick Jonathan up from detox. So we knew from the beginning that Jonathan had gotten into an argument with Jacob, and that's why we actually were trying to get a hold of Jacob to find out what was going on, and we couldn't get a hold of him.
Okay, so you find out about this fairly quickly, and then you're wondering where he is, you're wondering where his vehicle is. Okay, so you didn't find out about this after the vehicle. You found out this actually before it. Okay. Now, once again, since now that you stated that you haven't seen the vehicle, of course you haven't seen the inside of it, you can only be told what was in the vehicle, your understanding.
So there was like clothing, bags of clothing, normal stuff that would be in a car, but he probably kept more junk in his car, but then, he left his cell phone. He actually had his cell phone, which he left there. He did have what do they call it, contraband of like baggies, drug paraphernalia.
And his wallet was left in his truck.
And his wallet was inside of it.
Wow. So it sounds like if it was him, and we'll get into that, that whoever was in the vehicle, if it was Jacob or not, they just kind of jumped out and didn't take anything with them.
The SIM card thing.
So at some point, the SIM cards were taken out of Jacob's phone. We don't know if that was his paranoia on being tracked, but those were taken out of the phone and left in the truck with the cell phone and his wallet.
SIM card was left there.
All right, so please.
I think that's where my confusion always came in because everybody was always talking about the SIM card, but they have the SIM cards. So I think he took the SIM card out at some point, but they were all just in the car laying there when he got in the accident. So like you said, it seems like, the accident happened and whoever was in it just jumped out and left.
Just took off.
Because I never put the SIM card thing. I thought like he was trying to hide the SIM card or keep it with him. But no, it sounds like they were just taken out of the phone like in the truck.
Okay. Well, I know, having covered about 175 disappearances, that usually, I'm not saying this is the case in Jacob's case, we don't know, but when I hear that, it usually means to me that somebody is trying to, cover up where they are, because the SIM card is one of the ways, of course, to track where people are. That's the main functioning part of a phone. Of course, if we could look at other things, if he was hallucinating, maybe he was paranoid, and he might have seen that as a way to, if he thought somebody was after him, that might be a reason that he took the cards out. So why was the grandmother's phone in the car? We know that Jacob's phone was there. Why was the grandmother's phone there? Any ideas?
Jonathan tends to lose his phones or break his phone, so I'm assuming Jonathan had his grandmother's phone. And when Jacob kicked him out, probably more than likely the phone got left in there. That's what I'm assuming, but I think that's probably how it got left in there.
Okay. Is that what Jacob's grandmother has said? Is that her explanation as well? Do you know? Has she given an explanation why her phone was in there?
We discussed it a little bit, but she recently passed away about 6 months after Jacob disappeared. So you really can't, now that you think about it a year or some later, you can't be like, hey. So
right. Right. When did you find out about the phone and the cards?
I believe we found out when we talked to the State Patrol Wednesday, the 7th, that he had left his phones and wallet in there.
Okay. Do you know if the grandmother's phone was returned to her or not?
The State Patrol ended up keeping the phones in their evidence for about a month. Jefferson County, where we made the missing persons report, received them about a month after the accident, and then they were released to Jacob's mother because all the phones were on her phone plan, and that was about 2 months after the accident.
Okay. All right.
That's a month. That's a month later.
Okay.
To me, I think the missing person should have probably tried to get a hold of the phones or more. See, we're not police officers, so
right. I realize that. I realize that. I totally understand that you're not police officers. It's very new to you, and it's very tough for this to do. I just want to make sure that we make sure we have all the understanding in all of this. So these phones are there. The cards are out. You've not seen the truck or anything, so you just have to take the officer's word for all of this. Now, you did say, though, that you did get the phone records eventually, and were they helpful at all to understand what might have happened to Jacob?
I think to us, or at least to me, that I would be figuring that the cops would have done with the phones whatever they would have had to do with the phones as cops or investigators. And so when Jessica got him back, which is his mom, she did send me screenshots of people that he was messaging last or whatever, and I would call those. And usually the times that I would try to call those people, it would get a address, and I wouldn't be the nicest, and I didn't really get anywhere with whoever he was talking to, because I didn't know if these are, just friends of his or even maybe a drug dealer, and so I just wanted to try to find out where he is, and I didn't get nowhere, but I figured the cops would have done what they needed to do with these phones, as you see on TV. She would figure this all out instead of his parents trying to figure it out.
Right. Right. Well, I at least agree with you a little bit, but I've covered enough disappearances to know that's not usually how it goes, unless the police think that there's some sort of foul play, which in this particular instance, they would, of course, look at the facts and say this is a guy who was drinking and driving or something and just didn't want to get caught, and that's why he ran off. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying that the facts, their experience, that's what it's going to tell them. So there's phone records, calling those people, trying to call any numbers, not helpful in trying to figure out where Jacob was the night before or anything like that.
Yeah, nobody said that they had seen him the night before.
Okay. All right, so we don't know where he was going. We don't know where he was coming from. His wallet was left in the vehicle. Was his ID there? Anything seemed to be missing that might otherwise usually be in his wallet?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. And you already talked about the drugs being found in the vehicle as well, that they were left there. Whoever took off didn't take those. You mentioned that you didn't get to see the truck, so it's hard to ask you about anything odd about it, being that you've never seen it yourself, not even pictures of it. And just to clear this up, where is the vehicle now?
It was taken to an impound yard, just I think like a normal accident would have.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't taken for evidence or anything, so they sent a postcard to his last known address, which was with his girlfriend Jess in the mountains. And then when his mother tried to find out about getting the vehicle, the impound yard said that she had to be the registered owner.
Mm. Okay, so that's why it's still there a year and a half later. Okay, and what kind of vehicle is this, by the way?
It's just an old truck that he bought for real cheap.
Okay.
I think Chevy 2-door or something, or Dodge 2-door, long bed. Some that could go through the mountains and kind of get beat up a little bit.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit more about that night before with Jacob and his uncle. Have you had a chance to talk to Jonathan over the last year and a half about Jacob's disappearance, and has he been helpful at all? Any insight at all from him?
No insight, but we actually halfway take care of Jonathan when he needs it because he doesn't live that far away. He, with his grandma dying, he was staying over with his mom. His mom passing away and stuff. He had to grow up pretty quick after Jacob disappearing too, and so now he's living by himself and trying to figure out life at age 23. And so he comes to our house and hangs out days at a time, and we feed him and give him even though he's got a house, just walking distance. But yeah, I mean, to me, he's just in the same shape everybody else is, and how is this happening still at this time?
Okay. So once again, because he was drinking, maybe his memory is not that clear, but no insight into Jacob running off at all. I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm just asking. He's just as clueless as the rest of you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I think he thought in the beginning that Jacob just ran off like we all did. That he'll be back when he's ready to face the music on the accident or whatever. But
okay. Let's move on to this. Of course, we talked about her very early in this conversation. That was the girlfriend that Jacob had before he went missing. Her name is, we're just going to use her first name. Her name is Jess. How did she react, in your opinion, or factually, anything that she wrote online, social messaging, anything she might have said to you? How did she react to Jacob's disappearance?
Just made when we found out Jacob was in the accident, Jess made one post on Facebook asking for help with trying to find Jacob and for Jacob to come home. She did not show very much. She didn't post at all to help find him. Jacob had a dog that he had left at her house when they broke up, and in March she called us and she said, "I need you to take Jacob's dog or else I'm going to have to take her to the pound." She wanted us to take the dog.
March, meaning a month after the accident, not this March, but
yeah, a month after the accident.
Wow. Okay. Did she ever, if you had a flyer posted or made up or anything, did she ever post that on her page? Anything like that?
No.
We're going to talk about search efforts that you had. Of course, in the last year and a half, we're going to talk about that eventually. But did she ever show up for anything that you arranged?
No, she didn't.
Okay. Has, through the grapevine or anything else, has she ever offered an opinion on what happened to Jacob, to your knowledge?
No, she pretty much disappeared, and She would talk to Jacob's grandma once in a while, but not very often. She would never talk to me or George, and she hasn't had an opinion or any insight. She moved on really quickly and got a boyfriend afterwards, within that month after he went missing, and really doesn't seem to show any emotion over Jacob missing.
Okay. How far was the crash site from where she lives?
285 runs up into the mountains towards Bailey, so the accident was pretty much in between his grandma's house and where she lived in Bailey, so
About 20 minutes.
About 20 minutes.
Okay, 20 minutes from where she lived. All right, thank you for that. Okay, so girlfriend not helpful, hasn't taken part, hasn't shown a ton of concern. I can tell you that's not unusual in my experience, people that are broken up shortly before disappearance, but you'd certainly hope that they would show more character than what she showed. Now, you did go down into the area, maybe both of you or just one of you, and you spoke to some people who live in that area. You told me about talking to a person who takes care of a cemetery that's very close to where the crash site was, and some other people. Why don't you both talk a little bit about those experiences?
Okay. Well, with the cemetery regard, I go up there often. So there was so after all this happened, almost like a year later, there was actually two boys that were found deceased up on that mountain window, which is right by the accident, and it turned out not to be our son because I had to get a hold of Jefferson County, find out what's going on up there, and then was told it wasn't ours. But I go up there often because that would be the side where he would have walked away or ran away, or so I go up there, and finally one day, yes, the caretaker was there. He talked to me, and I told him who I was. I come up here, and he's like, oh, he's like, I remember this because there actually was police, and he plows the road all the way down to the road almost to 285, and takes care of it, and there was police, and they said that they tracked back to right there, but then they lost him right there. So everybody was on the confusion of they don't know if he went up in the mountain window or he just went down that side road that runs along 285 or...
So what you're saying is this caretaker, this property, kind of a little bit knew about Jacob's disappearance. He saw the police cars and everything, but didn't totally know everything that was going on?
Yeah, I don't think he knew totally, but it was, mountain town, kind of small community, so everybody was starting to hear that, a car accident happens all the time up there, unfortunately, because it's just, people not used to the road.
Yeah.
But at that point, then that's when he was probably putting two together with the accident, and then that this person hasn't been found, and there's police there looking. So, but he tried to think too much of it, but he did a little bit because he told me later on that once, which was probably another half year ago, that the mountain lions were actually moving in a weird direction that they normally don't because you get to know those kind of things. Stay there, and so he called the police for some reason just to check it out because he was thinking that they were feeding on something that wasn't in a normal area that they go all the time. So they did, and it ended up being an animal that they were feeding on. But yeah, that's and as I go up there still, he seems pretty confused on because I'll say he's still missing. He's like, wow, still, but yeah.
So but this guy says, do you know how often this person takes care of the cemetery? Every day? Is he up there every day doing it? Every other day? And thinking back, did he ever notice anything unusual? Any human action up there?
And I know he lives not in the mountains. He lives towards town, like where we are. But he works for it's Olinger Mortuary, so it's more than one. So there's some throughout Denver and surroundings. So there's that one up there. So I don't think it's daily he goes up there, but it's whenever they do whatever they do at those places, they have funerals or whatever. So he's got to help out with that and all that kind of stuff. So I think he's bounced around a lot, but he's up there weekly. I know that.
Okay. All right, so maybe or maybe not. Could he have been working the day that the wreck happened?
Yeah, and I don't think he was on the day. He was when that snowstorm came, because that's what, like I said, that's why he had to plow the road. And I think that's when that all came about. Is he plowed the road, and that's where the footprints ended right there for the police.
Okay. You mentioned two other young men were found deceased in that area. Do you know what happened to them?
Yes, they. I looked it up on Facebook and stuff, but I know they had issues as kids, being kids, but so they had some police issues, but nothing major. But they must have made a pact with each other, and nobody to this day knows it's those suicide prevention things. But they made a pact to kill themselves for some reason, and they went up to Mount Lindo and actually.
Wow. Do you know if this happened before or after Jacob disappeared?
This is after. This is why we know their parents now, because of his parents is right there, and once we found out it was somebody else's kids, I reached out to them on Facebook and apologized. Right.
Gave your sympathies. Okay. Did you go down to? I talked about how this is close to this place called Tiny Town. Did you go down there, see if anybody noticed anything unusual around that time?
And being winter, when it happened, it doesn't help at all in Colorado. But when I did during the summer or early summer this year, I went up there, and actually with COVID and everything, it's a little bit even harder. But there was actually a couple gentlemen kind of cleaning up. They volunteer for the little tiny town, little amusement park. And I talked to them, and one guy did hear about the accident, the disappearance or whatever. And the other guy didn't even hear about it, but we just talked for a while, and I let them know, how long it's been. And they just, like anybody else, they're like, wow. But they haven't heard anything different, or they've just heard of this ordeal that has happened there.
Yeah.
Because we did put flyers all over the town, just to, we put them on stores, we put them all the way up to where she lives in Bailey, all the way down to pretty much the Denver area.
Yeah. Okay.
Along that.
All right. So somebody, we're thinking it's Jacob, and we'll get into this alternate theory in a moment. But somebody went over the side of the hill there toward this area, in the area of the cemetery, in the area of this tiny town, during daylight hours, 9 a.m. on a Saturday, and seemingly nobody saw him after that. People who work in the area, people in that area. Nobody saw him. Maybe you can, being that you live in the area, how would you explain that area? How rugged is it? How many houses? How steep are the mountains? How would you explain it to people who don't live there?
Well, that's there's really no trails that are. There is trails, but not right there and stuff. It's pretty rugged. It's not that far in the mountains, but you can go way far in the mountains and you'll be in it's mountains, so you never know if it's going to be bad or not bad. But there is rocky faces. There's big downhills. There's and then there is some flat spots, but mainly right there it's pretty rocky, and it's even like that cemetery. It's a hard road to go up on a normal vehicle, and there ain't no way to go up if there's snow on the ground.
Okay. What was the weather like? We know that there was a blizzard a few days later, but on the day of this wreck, what was the weather the way you remember it, and how was Jacob would have been dressed?
Well, being winter in Colorado, living here forever, you have that saying where you never know what to dress, because it could be snowy one day and coats the next. But so Jacob would be, in the morning especially. So yeah, what they describe as a hoodie and all that would sound about normal, because he didn't really wear big jackets unless you are physically outside in a snowstorm, then you get a big jacket. But I don't think it was that bad before it. So, that would be normal stuff to wear. But then, but after a blizzard, you want to be dressed up pretty good.
Do you know what the temperature was? Just as an example, do you know what the temperature even was that Saturday morning?
The Saturday was a pretty nice day down in the Arvada area where we live, so it was probably, 60s. But in the city, it snowed yesterday and it'll be melted by today, whereas in the mountains, you have spots where it is colder, where there's still snow in the winter. So it's kind of a different with shadow.
Right.
And it was pretty warm that day. I don't know quite what it was up there in the mountains, but it was a really nice day in town.
Okay. All right. Now, I've mentioned a few times about this alternate theory, and we're at least going to talk about it a little bit. You have put forward the idea that maybe it wasn't even Jacob driving his truck that day. It wasn't Jacob that wrecked it. It was somebody else that wrecked it. Is this something that came to your mind, hearing the facts, the way now that you understand them for his disappearance, or is it something else?
No, I'd say that's something else. That just after being in this for, and anybody that does come forward with anything, people that you don't know that may have known Jacob, putting things in your head, like the things like, Jacob's has seen things that he shouldn't have, or your son's in a barrel.
Yeah. Right.
Those things I think that people put into, but you still have to put them into play that this could be real, but you never know. We've had ransoms, so for a little while we don't know why is somebody going to steal my 27-year-old son? I mean, it doesn't make no sense that a streetwise kid that would fight, but then you start playing that in your head that people are ransom noting us for $500, $1,000, $700, and you start just probably theorizing different things in your head too, besides the facts that we all know what happened.
Yeah.
We just can't say as anybody if it was Jacob driving. So that always plays in your head to where maybe it wasn't. I mean, a lot of these kids were hoodies and hats, but you still try to stay to the facts. But at the same time, yes, your mind can open you up to a lot of stuff.
Sure. And you aren't the first guests on this program to mention people scamming. Some of my guests have been scammed, have been unfortunately successfully scammed. So ransoms and things like that certainly are not new on the program. So unfortunately, I'm not surprised that you've encountered that as well. But regarding this alternate theory, once again, the way you understand, maybe I should ask you this. Have you ever personally, either of you or both of you, gotten to speak to this witness who saw the wreck?
No, not personally, no.
No.
They thought about maybe reaching out on the State Patrol's paperwork, but no, we have not. A lot of stuff you can look at, that's 2020, but maybe we should have, maybe we shouldn't have. But like we didn't even know that the State Patrol doesn't coexist with county police. So that really messed us up for a while because, like I said before, like with the police, that's why I'm not that happy with them because we didn't know that Jefferson County won't even talk to the next county over where actually Jacob lived before. So that's Park County. It gets missing through Jefferson County. But they don't even talk to each other to say, hey, have you heard anything up there since you lived there? Or, he's a missing person. So I think at that point, everybody should be talking to everybody.
And Jefferson County didn't know that they do not have the pictures of the inside of the truck. The State Patrol has that. There were dogs that were brought up after Jacob's accident, and they don't have that report in their report for Jacob, their file for Jacob. So there's a lot of holes in Jefferson County that they don't have from the State Patrol.
Wow. Okay. Regarding, though, this person who was driving the vehicle and wrecked it, would you say that the way that the witness described the person, it could be Jacob? Does it fit the general description? I know what you're saying. There's a lot of 27-year-old white guys out there with hoodies driving trucks. That's for sure.
But, yeah, to me it does. I mean,
okay.
To me it does. They obviously didn't say it was a lady or way different. So yes, it fits my son's criteria.
Okay. All right. But we're just, once again, not sure. I mean, why, if it was Jacob, I mean, to be devil's advocate here, I guess, why would Jacob jump if he was running from the police because he knew that he was in this wreck and whatever condition he was in, why wouldn't he take his wallet? Why wouldn't he take his phones? On the other hand, it does seem a little odd because even I think your more stereotypical DUI, where a person ultimately doesn't go missing, they usually do take their wallets and phones. They don't usually leave them there. So that's going to be something I'm sure the listeners will contemplate. Now, you've talked to me about some searches that have been done. You did mention dogs. I'm not the biggest believer in dogs, honestly, but you said you did have a dog up there sniffing around. What did it do?
Yeah, so as you say that, we did believe in the dogs because we believed in the whole system of this because we're brand new like everybody else. Never had a son missing. So there's these entities or resources being missing persons through the cops, and then there's dog people that search. So yes, and then we started hearing things. Became friends with another family. You know him, the paramedic, and he told us don't rely on the dogs either. And that's when my faith on that kind of really took a big dive because his son was the dogs were 30 feet or so away from him and never found him, and then they did later on in the search efforts. But that did not help either. And then we've heard things through these dog organizations that sometimes they train their dogs in certain ways, or the missing persons world doesn't seem the best either because some people try to get out there for fame.
That's true.
To get their name, money.
Absolutely true.
We just added all this ordeal after a year and some. I've told Amanda here that I don't even know if any of this is real. Maybe my kid's not even missing. I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
So,
well, I can speak to the dogs. I'm not picking on any particular dog owner or dog specialist or anything in particular, but I just know that I've covered enough disappearances where dogs were not helpful at all. It is a very inexact science. I would explain it the way people should think about polygraph tests. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. It's not an exact science. It's the same way with dogs. But just to go over that again, what did the dogs do that were involved? What did they do? What did they do when they were up there?
My take, which Amanda might know more, is that we have a Colorado forensics canines. I don't know if I can give names, but they do work with police departments in Colorado, and I don't know if elsewhere. But my son being missing, they came in to help out. So they did it as a helpful thing, but they also do it as training. So to me, if that's the only resource I'm going to get in these mountains that are dangerous, it's better than nothing because like that, nobody's searching. And if these dogs can handle and their trainers are good with mountain terrain, then to me to me in my mind it was better than just even people because the mountains are dangerous, and it's almost like the equi search down there that is the horses in Texas that look because they can deal with terrain that most people would go around, but if the dog is scenting, then at least they got to follow it. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
So, I thought that's a good thing. And so, like we just talked about, that yes, they can walk right over it and not, get anything out of it. And so then my thing went down, but they have been searching.
They have been searching since the spring and summer of last year, once it finally quit snowing in Colorado. Of course, they have to wait for, safety of themselves and their dogs from mud and snakes and all the other wildlife and elements.
Right. Sure.
And being able to schedule searches. So they have been out searching. The Colorado forensic canines haven't found anything. We ended up having another dog handler that came out, and this was about a month and a half ago. He had his dog, being next to the highway, and his dog alerted fairly close to where Jacob's accident was.
Okay.
And we ended up calling the police.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'll let George talk.
Okay.
With the dog alert.
Yeah, so the dog alerted, and, we're not used to the dog thing, like we said, so we wasn't even sure what that meant. The dog alerted on something. But then the handler actually said, which I don't know is right to say to somebody's parents, but he said this could be your son's final resting place, and that's when I was losing it a little bit. We called another lady who's kind of our advocate who's been in the industry for like 40 years with a lot of this stuff, and she said, no, if the dog said that, then we got to get the police up there and everything. We did. They didn't take it to me as seriously as they should have. It took them about 2 hours to get everybody up there. By the time I was done, then, they sent a lot of people. They actually apologized. They closed everything off. They asked cops to stay there all night because it was evening by then. And then they searched that area with divers, Little Creek on their hands and knees, and going to a beaver pond that I was told that my son's remains could be in. They went through all that, and they did not find anything.
How far is this from the crash site?
Probably 30 feet or so.
Oh, my.
It's right on the other side of Hampton. You have the highway, then you got a little bit of mountain, and then there's a little creek, then it's that frontage road. So it's in between the frontage road and Hampton right there, which to me, that's when, I lost it, because I was like, we're searching up here in the mountains, thinking the police did everything they could down where the accident happened, and especially during that time when the accident happened, we would still be looking for a normal-looking boy that, wasn't alive compared to what we're looking for now after a year and some. So it was mind-boggling to me, but like I said, they didn't find anything, and then it kind of just went cold again.
Right. That happens a lot. That's why, once again, I've only been doing this for almost 4 years, and I've heard enough about, these things to know that I'm just highly dubious. In fact, I would not tell people what I was watching this past weekend. I was watching a true crime program, or this past week, I should say. And I was watching something, and they were using dogs as, being, the end-all, be-all of being able to track people, and I'm just shaking my head saying that's just totally not true. I did read that I have an article in front of me from April 12th, 2019, that a grid search was planned for Jacob. Did that happen? What went on?
No. In small form, it did. So like we said, we've never been through this before. We didn't even get an advocate through Jefferson County, so we didn't really know what to do. So we just got it opened up on Facebook and with family and whatever family can think of as a resource to try to get a search going. Besides anybody that helped, but we did have, like I said, a lady come, talk to us. Said, you should have people sign paperwork saying if they get hurt, whatnot. So we got it, trying to get it going by ourselves, and not really a lot of people at all showed up. Maybe 5 besides family, and
Wow.
those family. We let the couple people that did go. One lady came with her 3-year-old, 4-year-old son, 5-year-old son. So we figured, no, this ain't gonna work. And so we just kind of drove up into the park, halfway up to that cemetery, and just kind of walked around the mountain. Then we did about the same thing a few months after that, or even a little later with family again, to where we all just went out there, parked at a certain site, and everybody just kind of as family, we're going to walk this area, you walk that area, you walk that area. And then no real professionals that we know searching. So, and then sometimes the same thing, like,
Right. So what you're saying is you didn't have a lot of people show up. I mean, getting, let's just say, 10 people to show up to search the area where this wreck happened is not very many.
No,
You
know, it's not. Yeah, to me, I thought it was going to happen like on TV, where everybody.
Yeah.
Well, my son is 27, and nobody really came. So,
Right. Okay. Well, I would certainly like to improve that the showing up of people. I mean, you need like 50, 60, 70 people to go, and do that, not 10,
Yes.
So
yeah, we would like somebody to help us organize it, and I'd be willing to be the guy because I've become bigger on on Facebook, and getting Jacob's story out there and his page out there to where people are now saying, and even friends of people that I've met throughout this with missing family members and family members that were found not alive, or even some that are alive that want to help us. So I think I can get that 50 people. I just need help on the organization side to figure out all the legit doing something like that. But
right. Okay. So this article did not, once again, if people want to look it up, it's on patch.com. It's an article from April 12, 2019, where it says grid search plan for man missing since February, but not a lot of people showed up for that. Okay. Just in general, what do you think, being that, you've been living with this for a year and a half, what do you think the law enforcement's attitude is toward Jacob's disappearance?
Yeah. To me, they've already told me they use their statute, which I put on Facebook too, on Jacob's page, of endangered. My son wasn't endangered when he got in the accident, so he doesn't fit that criteria of being an endangered missing person, which I disagree with. He was maybe not endangered before the accident, but to me, he could have been in danger when he got in the accident. As of a year and a half down the road, I do believe he's in danger or not alive anymore. I've argued with the cops about this, where the only way, what is arguing with the cops when you get you besides them not liking you or in jail, and I'll go as far as I can by pushing them, but they told me not, and through that conversation on Facebook with the police department, because I am on their page, so I will say stuff to them. They told me, Mr. Weeks, we are sorry your son is missing. But through Mr. Weeks' disappearance, we have done everything by the books on the statute of Colorado law.
Mm-hmm.
To me, he wanted me to read through his statutes of Colorado law, which I don't have 6 months to do that, to find his definition of endangered. I gave him his definition of endangered through the encyclopedia, and he didn't like that. But no, I don't think the cops do anything.
Okay.
I think they're picked up, and then we can all have an answer. But I think after a year and a half, now there is an issue. Nothing's played out in our well-being, because we're on the third missing persons detective, or whatever you want to call them, through Jefferson County. We'll have one, and they might start getting to that feeling for that case and working on that case, and this is its partner. So now you got a new one. Well, where does Jacob fit in their top priority in their list when the new guy comes on? And now we're on the third one that we got told to even wait a couple of days to call them, to let them figure out all the cases that they're getting thrown on their desk. So to me, I have no respect for the police department.
Okay. I can certainly understand that, surely. I think that, of course, between both of you, I think that the listeners get a very good feeling about what the last year and a half has been like. It's been very frustrating, being that you don't think that you've gotten as much help from law enforcement that you think you should have. Of course, trying to arrange a few searches, and not a lot of people show up. And then that doesn't even count all your, of course, personal feelings about having, a son that is missing. How would you say that Jacob's siblings have handled all this?
Well, and that's another thing as a parent. you can't divulge all your time and your feelings and everything. And I do a lot, and I feel bad for the other children, but if you 100% did that, your other kids are going to be real lost. So we try to give them as normal life as possible, but we all know they're different as of now because of all this.
Right. Nope. George, what you're saying is something that has been said many times before from parents who have missing children, is that it's hard to find that balance between trying to find one of your children and then not, frankly, ignoring your other kids.
Yeah, or even screw them up better, just thinking, or screw them up more because you're like, yeah, this can't happen. You got a kid that's missing.
Yeah.
So they're going to grow up in the world of this can happen to me, this can happen to anybody. I'm sure they are now because it's happened to us, but it's not a normal thing, I don't think. But it seems more normal on Facebook and friends and on so many missing groups that there's a lot of people that to my kids, they don't know that. They just know that this is happening to us, and maybe it's just a fluke or something. So we try to set a balance, but they do know it's killing us, and it's not. Yeah, I'm hoping it's not killing them.
Yeah. As I tell everybody, disappearances are rare, but they're not unique. That they don't. Most people who go what we would call missing do end up showing up somewhere very quickly. Many of them are found alive, or they come home alive, or something like that. And unfortunately, some of them are found deceased. But 99 out of 100 missing persons are found within like a week, either alive or deceased. And then you have that one case that goes for a week, and then it goes for a month, and then it goes for a year, and it just keeps going. So they are rare, but once again, they are not unique, because there are, especially in a country with over 300 million people, you're going to have quite a few of them, given the statistics. I know that you've talked about his page. Why don't you give out the name of Jacob's page on Facebook right now?
I believe it's at Jacob, or at Jake Paddock-Weeks, missing.
Why don't you say that again?
At Jake Paddock-Weeks, missing.
Okay. All right, and that is on Facebook. And are you, either one of you or both administrators of that, or do you have other family members who administrate there?
George is the administrator. There is a lady who had helped us get it going in the beginning, and she is an administrator.
Okay. All right, I will make sure. Please.
I will tell the truth is that I wasn't that computer illiterate, never had sex, or illiterate, that I've never had to work and stuff. It's always hands-on. So I didn't even know about this stuff on Facebook and whatnot, and I kind of got everything later on in life about all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then I just started getting into it, and now I use it half the day long with carrying flyers of other missing kids, and that goes kind of back to what you said. Yeah, a lot of them ran away real quick, and then they get found, and then you got to go through all your shared flyers and delete them. That way, they're not just hanging out on the computer.
Yep.
And I deal with it all day long and every day now with other ones, and some that may not have been found, but they're walking down the street, and through the resource of Facebook and sharing, and they got found. And you don't even know about some of those that may not even been found. You didn't even know he was missing, a month later or whatever. But it just so happens we got on the media, and he was found, and things like that. So the media I just didn't know much about on something like that until now. So now I'm kind of big into it and trying to help other people.
Right. I've seen you do that. I've seen it. George and Amanda, any last words before we complete this interview?
No, we just like to thank everybody for helping, caring enough to help.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. As I tell many of the guests, this is just the beginning of us all knowing each other. I want to continue to help you in any way I can. Try to find Jacob, figure out what happened to him. Certainly, if you think I can help in organizing some more searches in the area with more people. I'd certainly like to take part in that. And I appreciate you being on this episode of Unfound.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate everything.
You're very welcome. And that was my interview with George and Amanda Weeks, father and stepmother of Jacob Paddock-Weeks. I thank them for joining me and all of you on the program. Before I get into my summation, I want to let all of you know that I have posted both video and pictures of the accident location on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. These pics and video also include descriptions. I hope they help you better understand the dynamics of the crash. The big question regarding this disappearance is, was Jacob driving his truck? If it was Jacob, then this is a situation where we have to figure out where he went. Did he get lost in the mountains? Did he make it back to town? There are a few different choices. On the other hand, if it wasn't Jacob, that makes this disappearance a lot more complicated. If the driver wasn't Jacob, who was it? And where did that guy go after he walked over the bank of the road? Did he get picked up by someone? Could the wreck have been planned? Then, most importantly, what then happened to Jacob? Was he murdered? Did he overdose? Or did he take off and give someone his truck before he left? It all depends on your interpretation of what the crash witness says he or she saw. The problem, we don't know if the state police did any forensics on the truck. A fingerprint test of the steering wheel and gear shifter would be enough to determine if someone else was driving. Why? Because given what the witness said, it doesn't sound like the driver had enough time to wipe the inside of the truck down before taking off. Plus, the guy lit a cigarette. Hard to do while wearing gloves, although not impossible. Thus, I urge all law enforcement entities involved to perform those tests. And if they've already done so, I urge them to release that information to Jacob's family. As for everyone listening, you heard during the interview how the Weeks family has had a hard time organizing searches. The area is mountainous with deep woods. Simply put, it's not the easiest area to canvass. But if you are in the state of Colorado, or that you feel a certain connection to Jacob's disappearance, I urge you to reach out to his family on the Facebook page. Jacob Paddock-Weeks missing since 02/02/19. Tell them that you are very motivated to take part in a search. This is what the family needs right here, right now. And I should say, I also personally believe a search done by dozens of people is the best and most logical next step in trying to find out what happened on February 2nd, 2019. What I think I'm saying is that although the trip that day ended on that turn, the beginning of this case continues to be at Disappearance Curve. I'll leave the rest of the theorizing up to you. And that's the program. If you found it informative, please go to the app that you use to listen to Unfound and give this podcast a nice review. I thank you for listening. I'm Ed Denzel, and you've been listening to Unfound.